Welcome back to Learn Astrology with Mary. My name's Mary English. You can find me at www.maryenglish.com, maryenglish.co.uk and UK Astrologer. I don't know when you're going to be listening to this, but if you haven't booked a reading with me yet and you launch your browser over to my website, at the moment there's a pop-up box that will give you 10% off if you sacrifice your email address to me. So I'm always putting offers here and there. They don't last forever. If you want it, go get it, and it'd be lovely to work with you. Now, I mentioned a few episodes back about the International Astrology Library Online, of which I'm part of a team of people that are putting it all together, creating it, keeping it going. I suppose the word would be curator. Is that right? I don't know. No, I'm not the curator of it, because that's the person that looks after it, and that would be Philip, because he actually physically lives with the books. They're in his house. I suppose I'm on the subcommittee anyway, so I don't know what title I could give myself. And so I am super excited about it. So anything I'm super excited about, obviously I'm going to have to share with you, because what would be the point in keeping it to myself? So what I thought I'd do today is we're going to explore around the library a little bit more, and I'm going to read you some short extracts of a few books that are in there, so you can get a bit of a sort of a feel and understanding and a sound and a sight of how the library is and what it actually contains. Now I'm going to repeat the point that this is the only online library that contains astrology books that anyone, anywhere in the world, can have access to, and can literally read these books on their computer or their device. So it's an online resource. Now, as far as online resources go, because of the way that the internet is now, don't forget I'm very ancient, I was here when the internet was first invented, and the way that resources are worked and things can be compressed, etc., there are far more of these online type things. And it just so happens that my son works for a university, and he spent his whole life since the age of a teeny age as a photographer. He now works for an archive, get the right word there, an archive. And his job is to literally photograph or scan or record or whatever the items that are in the archive. So he was very interested in what we've been doing here, because he wanted to see and to know, how good were the scans of the books. Because to create something online, it has to be as near as possible to you experiencing it in real life, because what would be the point otherwise? You're just going to have loads of text and bleh. So the way that Philip has scanned these books, they literally come up the same colour that the physical books are. They literally come up so that the software that we're using for you to be able to access them, you can literally flick the side of one page to be able to turn it over. You can literally go bloomp like that, like you would in real life. Hopefully, if you're looking after a book correctly, you're turning the page from the bottom right and moving it over. Yeah, you're not getting it from the, sorry, this is bottom right. You're not getting it from the top right and bending it over and whatever. Because my brother was an antique book dealer, and he'd be rolling in his grave if he saw anybody writing things in books or getting to the top of the page and turning it over. It's like, you will burn in hell if you do these sort of things. So the scans that Philip has made of these books, they're ideal. And after a few minutes of being on the site itself and immersing yourself in the books, you completely forget, well, I don't know about you, but I completely forget that these are scanned. I've had some objections from friends, actually, that they're saying, I don't like looking at things online. Well, sorry, mate, you're going to have to look online. Otherwise, you're going to have to jump on an aeroplane or jump in a train or jump in a car. Or maybe you don't even jump. Maybe you just get into the train or the aeroplane or the car and drive all the way to Wales and make an appointment first of all with Philip to then go and see these books. And then if you want to look at them, you're going to have to book like however many hours you're going to be there. You're going to have to bring yourself a drink with you because he's not going to provide that for you. That's not his job. He's not paid to do that. And you're not allowed to drink in there anyway. But yeah, you can sit at a table and you can look at the books, but you're not, like in any library, you're not going to be allowed to take a drink with you and have it in the library itself. He probably would allow you to have it in his kitchen. He's not a horrible person. So there I am. I'm now in the library itself, and I am mooching around looking at the books and sort of going, oh. And so this is what I've been doing this morning, and I've got to chapter 2 of a particular book, and it's titled Infant Mortality and Length of Life. And I was going to sort of précis that by sort of saying, I cannot believe that anybody would write a book and have that. So, well, people have. And so I thought, oh, okay, I'm just going to read this little bit too, because, well, I'm going to read it. I mentioned, oh God, what episode was that? So I last talked about the library in 467. We're 470 today. I talked, oh yes, extreme birthing 468. So these are all recent things that have been involved. Involved is the wrong word. Interested in. And I was talking about free birthing. In extreme birthing, actually, forget about it being called free birthing in episode 468. And so this is when I read that title, because I'm just flicking through this particular book, Infant Mortality and Length of Life. Like, oh my goodness. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to read you a little bit of this book, because I want you to get a bit of an idea of the sort of history of astrology and whatever have ever people written about. Like, why would you go to all the trouble to write a book and put that in there if you, the author, didn't think it was going to be of interest to someone somewhere? Now, I believe that the author of this book, the book I've actually delved into today, is called A Student's Textbook of Astrology by Vivian E. Robson, B.S., so that's a Bachelor of Science, I think, editor of Modern Astrology, and it was printed or published by Cecil Palmer in Oakley House, Bloomsbury Street, WC1. And this is the first edition we're looking at the moment, and you and me, we're looking at this together. You're hearing what I'm looking at. It's because I'm dictating it to you, I don't know what the word is. First edition, 1922. So this is the year after my mother would have been born. My mother was born in 1921. So I'm now on page 66. Let me get back there. Oop, I lied. I'm on page 63, chapter 2, page 63, Infant Mortality and Length of Life. Now, this is me quoting this person, okay? This isn't me saying this. Don't get this into your consciousness that these words I'm speaking now are from me, okay? They're not. I'm reading a book. The first and most important consideration when dealing with the horoscope of an infant is that of its chances of survival, for it is obviously futile to delineate a map when the native has little or no chance of life. And just that in and of itself, it's like, well, if you were an astrologer, you're not going to, inverted commas, bother. The first and most important consideration when dealing with the horoscope of an infant is that of its chances of survival. It's obviously futile to delineate a map when the native has little or no chance of life. And do you know, that in and of myself, for me, it's like, well, but knowing how I am with astrology, I'd make a chart for whatever, living, dead, dying, but anyway. The vital spots in any horoscope are the moon and the sun, and the degree rising on the cusp of the ascendant, which should be treated as a planet and consideration given to the aspects it serves. One of these points is chosen according to certain rules as that which has chief influence over life, and acts as a significator of the length of life. This body or point being known as Heilig, or giver of life. The function of the high leg is to indicate the approximate length of life by means of its strength or weakness, and severe afflictions to the high leg must occur for death to ensue. The rules by which it is chosen are as follows. Now, I can honestly say I have never heard of the high leg. He's spelling it, and Vivian, I think, is a man's name. He's spelling it Hyleg. Have you heard of this? You learn something new every day. Number 1. The hyligal places are from 25 degrees below the ascendant to 5 degrees above, measured by oblique ascension, whatever that is. The upper half of the 11th house, all the 10th and 9th houses, I presume uses plasters, and from 25 degrees above the cusp of the 7th house to the 5th house below. Now, I'm only reading this out to you, okay? It's not quite sunk into my brain cells to be able to make any sense of it. I'd probably have to read it more than once, and I'm just reading it to you and just to give you a glimpse and idea of what's going on here. But that's quite a lot of different places. But anyway, carrying on. The 8th and the 12th houses and all below the earth, except for those portions of the 1st and 7th already indicated, can never be hyligical, or however you pronounce it, hyligiacal. 2. If the sun occupies a hyligiacal place, it must also be chosen as high leg. 3. If the moon occupies a hyligiacal place when the sun does not, it then becomes high leg. 4. If neither the sun nor the moon is in a hyligal place, the ascendant must be chosen. And then, these are the generally accepted rules, but it must be admitted that the question of high leg is still a somewhat open one. It's been suggested that high leg may change as the horoscope progresses and another body passes into hyligal place, but much research still remains to be done on this matter. The length of life is estimated by the proportion of good and bad aspects received by the high leg. If this body is free from affliction and supported by favourable aspects, a long life may be predicted will be predicted, while if it receives only bad aspects, the life will be short. In practice, it's advisable to study all 3 vital points and not to predict a very early death, unless all the points are badly aspect and there is little or no assistance from the benefics. Are you trying to tell me you are going to be reading for some poor mum who's just given birth to a baby and you're going to make some bogging pronouncement about the length of the baby's life? Really? Is this what they got up to in 1920? I'm shocked. Aspects of the high leg and other vital points from Venus and Jupiter are the most desirable, but may be weakened if these bodies are weak by sign or position, if they also happen to rule the 6th, 8th or 12th houses, and so on. So you can go read this book yourself if you like. Have you got any chart examples? He's going about vitality. So Venus, Leo and Libra are strong and Sagittarius strong. And then Taurus, Gemini, Virgo, Scorpio and Aquarius are moderately strong. No, what a funny combo of things. He's done Aries, Leo, Libra, Saggy. So those are air and fire. Taurus, Gemini, Virgo, Scorpio, Aquarius. And then the weakest of all he considers is Cancer, Capricorn and Pisces. So he's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 9, 10, 11. Funny way of doing things. So Cancer, Capricorn and Pisces are the weakest of all, and if at all afflicted can give much difficulty in rearing. Capricorn, however, often gives a long life if the native survives infancy, as it becomes increasingly strong as old age is reached. Gordon Bennett, your high leg. Ooh, I've never heard of high leg. Now, according to our friends on Google, the high leg in astrology is a Persian Arabic term for the planet with the greatest essential dignity in 5 important natal chart positions. So this book that this chappie's written, and I think we were on chapter 2, weren't we? So the first part is everything that you would need to learn in astrology, and but I still go by the thing that the way that I teach it, just doing chart shape to start with, is a much more gentle introduction, because in this book he launches straight into how this orbits that and the amount of circulations of the other, and there's a whole load of maths in the first part of it, and I think I would have probably read it, and well, I didn't read it this morning, so I skipped through it. Can't you tell I've got lots of mutable planets and moon in Gemini? Attention span. Yeah, infant mortality, a whole chapter. And then chapter 3 talks about personal appearance and physical peculiarities. So, these are things that astrologers obviously were more caught up in. There was a Leo, body, medium, height or tall, fine figure, squarish body, strong, broad shoulders. Bless. I don't think people look like their sign of the zodiac. I think sometimes people wear their hair like the sign of the zodiac. It is true. There's a research that I read ages ago. This fellow had done a website, and he asked people to send photographs of themselves with just their ascendant sign, not the sun sign. And the amount of Leo ascendants that had the mane, M-A-N-E, the mane, the sort of Leo mane of hair, it was quite uncanny. And a lot of them, it was blonde. So it was blonde mane-like hair. But these were only Leo ascendants. Trump is a Leo ascendant, and the way he wears his hair is so OTT. But he should be grey now or white, but he doesn't. He dyes it blonde, and then he sort of shuffles it around his head. Yes, so that's that book that we were looking at there was Robson's Student Textbook of Astrology by Vivian E. Robson, BSc. A student's textbook. Do you know, actually, if I were a student of astrology, that would completely scare me and put me off it. But then I learnt in a different era. Now, we've got, so let me go back. So I'm in the library. I've signed into the library itself, and there's these lovely little bookshelves, and each of the books, Philip has scanned them, so the front cover of the book is facing outwards, which in fact in a library, his library doesn't do that. You wouldn't have the space, and every book in his library is put onto the shelf with the spine facing out, because that's how books have been designed, that you can read the spines. It's an absolute art now, the cover of a book and the spine of a book. When you go to bookshops like Waterstones, they'll have tables of books, and the book is flat down, so face upwards, so that you can see the cover of the book. And in publishing, the cover of the book is the most important thing, because they say you can't tell a book by its cover, but people are very, very, very influenced by the cover of a book, and their marketeers and the departments within publishers, trust me, because I've had 14 books published by publishers, that if the cover doesn't look like it should do, people will overlook the book. So consequently, there was a period in time where an awful lot of books had that awful yellowy colour, sort of like not Kermit green, because that was a colour that went for another time, but a sort of fluorescent-y. But that's only so that people would be attracted towards it. But the designs of the spine today are not as important, But back in the day, the spine was because if you couldn't read what the spine said, you wouldn't be able to get the book, And so consequently, there was a period in time where a lot of books' spines were pretty ornate. Because this is my bookcase here. I'm Mr. Fanakity Pan. I'm so rich. I want you to see that I have, I don't know, a first edition of Jane Austen's, whatever it is, on my shelf. But Philip has scanned the covers of the books and placed them on the shelves so that when you sign in and you look at each shelf, as opposed to each summary of the shelf, each shelf itself, he's not only scanned the cover, but to the left of it, he's also scanned the spine, so that when you then click on the books, and we go back to Robson's student textbook of Astrology 1922, the first page you come to, you see the spine. I don't know about you, but I like to see the spine, and you see the cover. And that, in and of itself, isn't something that you would come across on other places where books have been scanned. Now, I know for fact that at the Wayback Machine and the Internet Archive, not the Wayback Machine, that's on the Internet Archive. On the Internet Archive, the books that have been scanned on there, they'll do the cover and they'll do the pages inside, and there'll be pretty awful scans. They'll be mostly black and white. These, every scan is in 100% colour. Is there such a thing as 100% colour? So the page that I'm on, bookcase, Mary, that I'm on, is called the Astrological Association Library Sources. So this bookcase I'm on contains of 104. Yes, there's 104 books on this set of shelves, and these all belong to the Astrological Association that have been built up over the years. Yeah, so the Astrological Association has been going for quite a while. Now there's a lot on this shelf. Things written by a guy called Carter. He's on the principles of astrology, symbolic directions, essays on the foundations of astrology. We've got people, so this Robson bloke's done quite a few. We've got Sephariel, the science of foreknowledge. And then the most important books on this shelf is Bajent's Campion Harvey, Mundane Astrology 1995 and Mundane Astrology 1984. And it's in the 1984 edition of that book, because it was then reprinted, that there's some predictions that were made that came true. So I'm not going to read them out because that would be unfair. We've got Parker's Astrology. So if you're a little bit older than 30 years old, you might have learned astrology Parker. That's him and his missus used to do books. I can't remember if they're still alive. You've got Llewellyn's A to Z of horoscope makers. So there's a number of things on here. There's encyclopedia. Oh yes, I was looking at it the other day. Cornell's Encyclopedia of Medical Astrology. So that was printed in 1933, and because it's a very, very big book, it took Philip actually ages to scan it. He's made it into two, inverted commas, books. It's not actually two books in real life, it's one, but for the purposes of it being in the library. And I was having a little skip around there the other day and sort of looking, ooh, that's interesting. Where was it I went? So it's all alphabetical. It's so in things like, where are we now? We're under nakedness and narcotics. Alcohol and opium habit, Neptune in a watery sign, and especially in Pisces in the 6th or 12th house, and afflicted, tends to both inclination for drink and narcotics. Pisces on the ascendant, cases see notes 262 and 288 in 1001 N end. See Neptune Pisces, yeah. And then he's even got things like ridged, like nails, white, well-shaped, C-rounded. It's like, oh my goodness, the astrology of what your nail shape is like. Suffering and pale, what are we on now? Oh, death from drug habit, oh my lord. Natural powers. It's divided into, it's just, yeah, alphabetical. Death, what we got there? Nature, kind and quality of death, the terminus vitae, species of the death. The nature and quality of death are ruled over by the 8th house, the house of death, and indicated by the 8th house, and the nature of the planets in the 8th house. Oh, and then he's got a whole load of diseases and operations and like, yeah. But that actually was quite interesting, because I do a teeny bit of medical astrology. I haven't been a homeopath for the last 30-something years. I'm still very interested in health. And there's one with an absolutely beautiful colour, and it's called Heindel's Astrodiagnosis, A Guide to Healing. And that's such a beautiful cover on it. Do you know, I would have been inclined back in the day. So this was, when was it printed? Hold on. This is a second edition. Yeah, 1929. If I'd gone into a bookshop, like an antique or a second-hand bookshop, and I'd seen that, I would have got it just for the cover. It's such a beautiful colour. It's a shade of green with a border round the square of the book with a darker green with little red details to it. And then there's sort of superimposed at the top, written in a goldy sort of imprint, Astrodiagnosis, A Guide to Healing. And underneath that is a sort of, I think that's a Star of David star, and then a cross over it, and a heart, and an oil lamp, and it's by the Rosicrucian Fellowship, whoever the heck they were. They were obviously some organisation that existed at some point. And it says it's by a guy called Max Heindel and Augusta Voss Heindel. Wow, that must be a husband and wife, isn't it? A treatise on medical astrology and diagnosis from the horoscope and hand. Ooh, the hand. Yes, copyright 1929 by Mrs. Max Heindel. Oh, Fellowship Press, Oceanside, California. Okay, so this one was printed in the USA. I say it's such a beautiful cover to it. Bless. It's got a table of contents, which is pretty good. So we've got anatomical, physiological properties, rulerships and qualities, sympathy, antipathy, yeah. The science of right living, I can imagine what that is about. God, I expect. The mentality, the sixth house influences, preliminary steps in diagnosing, diagnosis from the horoscope, the eyes, the throat, the lungs, the heart, the kidneys, the stomach, the kidneys, sex, spine, liver, circulation, blah, 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 the ductless glands, the thyroid, which is the thyroid, thymus glands, the adrenals. Ooh. And then some, yes, bits about the signs of the zodiac and how, whatever they are, rulerships and qualities. Aries rules the brain. Well, isn't that the case? And that is such a beautiful looking book. And when you're clicking through the pages, it looks like an old book. So you go and clickety click, and each page, sometimes they load immediately, and sometimes it takes a couple of seconds because, you know, it's there, exists on the site. Depends how fast your Wi-Fi is or your downloadings and stuff. You can't skip through them too quickly. I have tried that. You have to give them at least a second to download. But I say you can go to the bottom of the page, and if you touch the bottom of the page, it'll curl up, and then you can literally, like I'm just doing it at the moment, you curl up like that, woof, and you can turn the page over like you could do in a real book. But it's a brilliant thing. The library, okay, so I'm not complimenting necessarily the books, and I'm being rather judgmental about the form of astrologies that they're using, but that was obviously okay for the time. Now, there's lots of other bookshelves. So that shelf I'm on is one that's owned by the AA. And Philip has called them bookcases. So if I go to the top of the page, we've got British, American and Indian books from the AA library. We've got British astrological publications from 1598 to 1726. British astrological publications from 1784 to 1854, British and American astrology from 1854 to 1894. We got the Astrologer's Magazine and Modern Astrology from 1890 to 1912. We got the Modern Astrology Magazine from 1913 to 1941. We've got Alan Leo and Modern Astrology Office Books 1896 to 1943, and other British astrological publications from 1894 to 1915, and we've got rare racing astrology and financial astrology books. So that's how he's made the bookcases out. So that we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We've got 9 bookcases, and then in each bookcase is like wads of books. So I'm on the British. This is Lily to Partridge now, so he's done them alphabetically. And each bookcase that you go to, sometimes it will ask you for a password, and the password is at the top of the page, and you enter that, and then you get to see all these books. So I'm now, how many books have I got? I've got 31 books on here, and these are 18 something or other. What's that one? That's 1603. Ooh, let's have a look at him. And this is called Haydon, A Defence of Astrology. Now, the cover of this has nothing on it. Other the spine does. It just says Haydon's Astrology. Astrology spelled G-I-E. So this is printed. Does it tell us inside? 1603. Oh, look. And this is where I'm going to not be able to read out to you what I'm seeing, because I'm going, oh, look at that. And this is all written in like old script, so that F's are S's and the S's are F's and things like, notwithstanding some that without examination are apt lightly to credit anything that is commended unto them with any zealous pretence or slew of piety, though perhaps themselves never read one leaf of M. Chambers' treaty. It's all written in very old-fashioned sort of script. So if you want to see what astrologers got up in 1600 and something, got up to, I mean, then this is the thingy to look at. And the scans are so good that even though in reality the ink shines through on certain pages, you can still read the scans that he's made. And this is just such a marvellous thing for us to be able to access. Us, that's you and me. We can get into these bookcases and look at stuff, yeah. Now, there was one more that I wanted to explore with you, so let's head over to the bookcase Victorian Edwardian, the turn of the century UK, late Victorian and Edwardian astrology. And the one that caught my eye is called Chaldean Astrology Up to Date, and it was printed in 1901, and it's written by a guy called George Wilde. It doesn't appear to be an enormous book, just sort of judging a bit by the scanning of it, but anyway, it was published in London in 1901. Now, the thing that I thought was interesting was the bits they've written about Uranus, and they don't always call it Uranus, they call it Herschel. So the planet Uranus, that we now call Uranus, was discovered in 1781, and you sort of would have thought by 1901 the astrologers would have got their heads around it. And I say astrologers is a broad term here. But in 1901 he's writing about the signs of the zodiac, and he's got to page 49, I think. Yeah, 42, can't see. And it says Aquarius is the house of Saturn and of the airy triplicity. It says some modern writers say that Uranus is the ruler or significator. So in 1901, it wasn't automatically attributed to the sign Aquarius, which today it is. And even though the book mentions Neptune, which was discovered in 1846, and this book's 1901, so less than 50 years later, they haven't attributed Neptune to any sign of the zodiac, because under Pisces it says the ruler to Pisces is Jupiter. So it must have been quite a strange time for astrologers to live in the early 1900s, because the final planet, Pluto, that wasn't discovered until 1930, and you sort of wonder how long it took before astrologers were making their minds up about the rulership of it and what it means, etc. Now, there is a little bit in this book about Uranus and where it is in the houses and what it's how it is as if it conjuncts the ascendant and in each sign. So they've covered in the book Uranus being in each sign of the zodiac, but they're like less than a sentence. They're just a few words. And I don't think there was a description of Neptune. Oh yes, and he calls it Uranus or Herschel. The symbol he uses is exactly the same as the one that we use today, so no change there. And just an example, I myself have got Uranus in the sign of Leo, and it says here, Uranus in Leo, middle stature, light brown hair, fair complexion, possessing self-importance, exaggerated pride, a little stubborn and arrogant, and I can put my hand up to all of those. I don't know what would be quite so cruel, but... And then in the next chapter, which is chapter V1 is 6, the natural properties, influences and effects of the planets. And he starts the chapter with Herschel again. So he jumps about calling it Uranus and Herschel. He said, Herschel, this planet is malefic, and the evil which emanates from him is often peculiar, strange and unexpected. His nature is eccentric, and he's especially inimical to marriage. If in the 7th house, or afflicting the moon in a male's horoscope, constant domestic infelicity is indicated. This planet is hostile to love and the fair sex. When conjoined with or afflicting the sun in the natus means the natal chart, of a female, he delays marriage and causes sad divisions. This is the planet causes that. The planet's eccentric nature makes him an uncertain quantity, and benefits from his good aspects are generally unexpected, sudden, peculiar and extraordinary. The child of Herschel is romantic, original, penetrating, often dogmatic, critical, fond of occult things. The traits of character emanating from Herschel are mystical, psychometric, psychological, observative, such as marvellous perceptive powers which baffle the judgment of readers of character. The rays of Herschel are verily inexplicable. Old writers say, and he goes and talks about Saturn and darkening of the eyes, and so he skips straight from Herschel into Saturn at that point, and then he goes, I think after Saturn he goes on to Jupiter, and he's sort of going backwards with the planets, which is a bit weird because we normally do it the other way around, like Sun, Moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, etc. But yeah, the order's really strange. And there isn't a vast amount about Neptune either, because he says here, we found, this is just about the planet itself, we found that this planet is a malefic, so there's another one of malefic, and produces the malice of fortune when in cross aspect to the luminaries. When found in the 7th house, he often prevents marriage in the horoscope of a female. In the horoscope of a male, causes domestic infelicity, which Uranus apparently calls it as well. The woman who has Neptune on the western angle in her horoscope will either remain single or find misfortune in marriage and an early widowhood. Good, Bennett. When this planet afflicts the moon in any part of the horoscope, then the misfortunes will come to the native. When afflicting Venus, he causes disappointment in love. The sun in quartile aspect to Neptune is the promiser of disaster 45 years later at the sesquiquadrate. If Neptune's in the 2nd house, then bankruptcy is to be feared. Anybody got that? Jupiter in good aspect to Neptune, he promises inheritances or gain by will, whilst the evil aspects indicate a paucity of money, difficulty in getting money. Neptune's good aspects to the luminaries help the native to a competence. If in the 5th house and in evil aspect to the luminaries, then heavy loss in speculation is threatened. Good aspects of Neptune to Venus, Mercury in the midheaven impart talents and abilities. But it was, in the book, it was like Neptune and Uranus just aren't fluffy planets, and it's still quite, the way this is written, there's an awful lot of good and bad, and this is 1901, so it's not that long ago. Good and bad, and you're not going to have babies if you got this, and what was that one? Uranus in the 7th, unhappy marriage, if any. This is bad for public undertakings, partnerships and dealings with lawyers. The position delays marriage. So they're really negative attitude towards those two outer planets. And as you know, I'm a lover of the outer planets, and I don't have a negative attitude towards them. I think they are generational, and provided we understand the energies of them, they can be illuminating and helpful for us. So good old George, in his book here, as I say, is not particularly optimistic about these planets. And what attracted me to the book was the name of the guy who wrote it is a guy called George Wilde, that he titles it Chaldean Astrology Up to Date. And the Chaldeans were astrologers that were around they were just before Jesus was born, because they're mentioned in the Bible, Chaldeans. So Chaldeans really, really early astrology, but they didn't have Uranus back then. So you sort of wonder why he was even writing about it. But then don't forget, a lot of these books, a lot of these very old books, publishers as a thing wasn't a thing. So now we've got large publishers like Llewellyn and Hay House, etc. My publisher, which used to be called John Hunt Publishing, but they're not called that now. They're called Collective Ink Books. So even in my lifetime, my writing lifetime, my publisher has changed name. But back then, publishers weren't a thing. Nothing like they are now. That if you wanted a book to be printed, you paid for it yourself, or if you were lucky, then you might get people to sort of sponsor you to pay it. I mean, we've got a member of our family that, this is dating back now, this is quite a few generations ago, that wrote a book about the Lansdowne Tower, and he also decorated the tower. So this Edmund English, his name was, but he went around to rich people and asked them to sponsorship this book because it got beautiful illustrations in it. And he went to the richest people in Bath, asked them for a couple of bob. They chipped in. He managed, I think there was something like 4 copies of it printed. Don't quote me. I know there's 4 that are still in existence. Our family's got 1 and Bath City Library's got 2. But that's how things were published back then. So when you're sort of thinking about, books and how they are, and these books that are on the online International Astrology Library online, those books, there wouldn't have been editors, there wouldn't have been promoters, marketeers, or anything like that. It was quite almost similar to self-publishing, not far off it, especially the very, very old books, so the 1600 books and stuff. That poor bod who wrote that book, he would have had to fork out the dosh to send it to the printers. I mean, that in and of itself, that was ridiculously expensive. And if you didn't manage to sell your book, then you'd be in debt to the person that printed it, and assuming even, of course, that, so it was so books, it was quite a big thing to write a book then and to have it published and for anybody to even buy the bloody thing. So there's lots and lots of different books on lots of eras. We're starting the 1600s in that library, and that segment of it that we've got takes us up to books that are out of copyright, so they have to be more than 70 years back from where we are now, which is 2025, which takes us up to sort of the early 1950s. So I'll put the link to the library resource pages, so do have a little mooch around there. Philip Graves himself is going to be doing some free webinars on specific books that are in the library. I mean, he's written a series of really, really interesting articles for the Astrological Association Journal about particular astrologers and what they got up to and what happened with their books and whether or not they sold and who went bust and who did things and who fell out with whoever. And I haven't, trust me, there's 400 books on there that I've just skimmed of 3 of them today, and it's really wonderful that we have that resource. Do I sound excited about it still? Because, so just for myself, because I'm so interested in the outer planets, where was the evolution from this is a malefic planet to, this is what this planet means, and not freaking out about it. So just in my own lifetime, when I first started learning astrology, there was bumps written about various different planets, and even that's changed in my astrological lifetime. But on the library, I chose the book, the last one, at 1901, because we're now sort of turning into a new century. because the previous planets, the two of them were discovered prior to that, and the next one wasn't until later in that century. How were people writing about those planets, and what's changed? I tell you, the biggest thing that's changed. Back in the day, most books were written by blokes, and it's a step change now. A lot more books, especially astrology books, are written by women. I've done a whole series, but if you think of Liz Green and all the other astrological authors, it's shifted, thankfully, to women writing about astrological things. But I think it's what I really like about the library when I'm exploring it is that the change. It's sometimes it's subtle, sometimes it's really not subtle. It's just smash you in the face type of stuff. But over the years, how things have arced to where we are now. So if anybody sort of says, when we're talking about modern day astrology, I mean, I'm forever quoting about is it Margaret Tyler? Hold on, not Margaret Tyler, Margaret Hone, her book, the modern textbook of astrology. Well, that ain't modern anymore either, and that is a very, very good book. If you can get a second-hand copy of it floating around on Amazon or eBay or whatever, I really would urge you to get it. She used equal house and inverted commas justify why she uses it. There's a lovely section on the history of astrology. I won't go into it anymore because we're running out of time this morning, but that's a fabulous book. However, that again is dated to what astrologers do today and how they do it. So yes, you can learn astrology and how it works, but how you might practice it, how you might talk about it today is different. And I perfectly understand people like Chris Mitchell, who studied and specialises in medieval astrology and can get some wonderful results from the astrology that he uses. And I'm not condemning anybody that does medieval astrology. Me, however, I meet my clients to where they're at. And back in the day, there wasn't that soft, gentle atmosphere in an astrological consultation. It was more the expert telling you what's going to happen to you, whilst in my practice I'm listening, which is a completely different ballgame. Anyway, today we've been exploring the International Astrology Library online in a little bit more detail. I'll put the link to get over there. Let me just tell you the actual address if you can't be asked to go to the show notes to find it. So you can get to it if you go to astrologicalassociation.com and then you do / then the word international, then dash, then astrology, then dash, then library, then dash, and online. That'll take you straight there. It saves you even Googling it. Boom, you can get to the actual page itself and have a little mooch around and see how much it is. It's £50 for non-members of the Astrological Association, or if you are a member, it's only £25 a year, with 400 books on there and more going to be added to it over the years to come. In fact, over the months to come. It's the most fantastic resource. Now, next week, we've got a super guest. We've got Saffron Dennis is going to be joining us. So we're going to be putting the spotlight onto her and finding all about her astrological journey and what she does and where she learned and all the rest of it. So tune in next week. We're going to be speaking to Saffron. So I hope you have a fab week. If you haven't done your New Year's booking, then get on in there quick because the slots are filling up. And I hope you have a fab week, and I'll be back next week. Bye-bye now.